I usually read all day, every day.
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome. This is our Pilgrim's Progress stream. And I hope you're here to discuss with us. But if not, I hope you're interested enough to try it. We have some discussion questions, but we'll just kind of go vaguely over that. Mainly, we're just here to discuss the book. So definitely let us know your thoughts in the comments, because we really love to hear it from you guys. That's the fun part of a live show.
Absolutely. Oh, I have it. I'm like, why don't I see anything? Oh, there we go. I have it on, I guess, private chat. I never use that.
Yes, there is a private chat. It's handy. But if you're like on your phone, it's kind of hard to get to. Are you on your computer?
Well, I'm on my computer for here. I look at my phone.
Okay. Well, alrighty then. So, first of all, why don't we just start with like general thoughts? Like, do you have a rating, Krista, or?
Oh, golly. Yeah. I mean, so this was not my first time reading this book. I had read it many years ago, probably when I was a kid, teenager, maybe. Maybe my parents read it to us. Like, I don't know. It's just, I mean, it's been around a while, right? So, but I go back and forth because there are parts of it that I really like, but I did not enjoy reading it, even listening to it on audio. Either I was feeling bored with it, or I wasn't understanding bits and pieces of it, just because I'm not the best audio learner, but I wasn't sure I would get it finished if I didn't listen to it.
Yeah.
And some parts felt a little, I don't know, heavy-handed isn't the right word, because it is an allegory. It's like just a very in your face allegory. And so I was like, okay. I don't know, a little bit eye rolly at times, but then I'm going through today and yesterday, like trying to remember quotes that I liked and stuff. I'm like, man, that was so good. Or like, that was so good. So I think I'm just landing on a 3, because while it wasn't particularly enjoyable for me to read, I still think that there's a lot of value in it. And it is a book that, like, potentially I could see myself coming back to again and reading again at some point in my life again. Like, so it's a tough one for me to rate. I'll just say that. Like, enjoyment level is probably more like a 2, but like content and quality probably is more like a 4. So I'm just gonna land on a 3.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I think that pretty perfectly captures actually my thoughts as well. It's like the content is like a 4-star, but for me, the reading experience made it like a 3-star. I'm just gonna steal that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, we'll talk about a lot of parts that we liked and things that we didn't, whatever, but I think in general, it wasn't super enjoyable experience of reading.
Yeah. I was really hoping that I would be able to just listen to it.
Yeah.
Because it's not exactly short.
Right.
And it's not exactly like intellectually stimulating to the point where I'm just like, I want to read every word, because it's very obvious what it's saying,
Yeah.
So for me, it was kind of a difficult balance. It wasn't something that I felt really compelled to read physically, but it was something that I had to read physically because I couldn't just listen to it, because nothing would stick if I just listened to it.
Welcome to the situation I'm in right now. We're going to talk about this book, and I listened to the majority of it, so it's okay.
Exactly. I think I read 85% of it, and then I listened to the last 15%.
Yeah.
But even reading it, I felt like a lot of it didn't stick super well. I did struggle with it as well. So
which is why I think rereading it could happen in my future, because I do think, but I think I could I could get away with like a modernized version of it and not have to go back and read the kind of this classic version, which is a little more difficult in its style and wording and all that stuff. But yeah.
Yes. Hello, Paul.
Hello.
Did you read along with us? Or you were excited about it? But yeah, I agree. I think on reread it would improve because I read part of this when I was a teenager and I DNF'd it. But the part that I read when I was a teenager was easier for me to follow, stuck with me better, enjoyed it more. So I don't know, maybe on a reread more of it. I find that to be the case with classics frequently these days. When I read a classic, I'm not enjoying it so much the first time, but if I go back to it later, it's like, oh.
Which I am a fan of. Watch the adaptation and then read it. With classics, typically I'm a read the book first and then watch an adaptation, typically. But with classics, I'm a big fan of watch the adaptation first, kind of get an idea of who the characters are, what's going on. Because then when you read it, you're like, oh yeah, I remember that guy. Like, it helps me so much because the language is so different in classics that I don't like automatically pick up on some of that stuff. Whereas if I watch an adaptation, now I understand kind of the gist of what's happening and what, even though, I mean, obviously adaptations change a little bit from the story, but it gives me enough of kind of a general base knowledge so that when I go into the book, whatever it might be, I have an understanding. So I did that opposite. I read it first and then watched the adaptation. But it would have been helpful to watch it sooner in the story. Yeah, I think
with books that are like classics, there's literally so much thought put into them that frequently I just feel like I miss so much. And then when I watch an adaptation, there's so much there that I honestly didn't ever visualize, never thought about, and it will really bring its own. Sometimes it's a unique interpretation, from the book, but even then, it just gives you a new perspective to view the book from, which you can disagree with or agree with. Yeah. So it just helps you think about it more deeply, I guess.
I agree. Yep. I agree completely.
Yes. Welcome to exactly what we felt.
Yeah.
It was a challenge.
Well, and I learned in looking stuff up today that, because are we going to talk separately about part 1 and part 2 or just kind of all together? Like, this is kind of general, so I guess I could talk about it.
It doesn't matter, yeah.
So in part 2, one of the big things that I noticed is that the passage of time seemed much longer in the second part. Like years go by during their Christiana's journey with her kids. Because I'm thinking that the boys were all little, but by the end they're getting married before they even get to the ending, right? So there's a lot of time that passes in the second one. Whereas in the first one, it was like event. Boom, here we are, Celestial City. Like, obviously time passes, but it's a lot more intense and it's a lot more heavy. And I was reading one article that the first part, Christian's story, is a lot more focused on the difficulty of the Christian walk, of the journey, whereas Christiana's story is a little more well-rounded. Like, there are more people that come around her. There are places where she stays with them for years. Like, there's just it's a easier go in part because of the people who have gone before and the expectations that she knew of what to expect. But and I learned that a lot of Christian's journey reflects John Bunyan's story and what his personal struggles were, and that he started writing it when he was in prison, because he was imprisoned for preaching, because he was not part of the Church of England, and so was preaching kind of on his own. And they're like, nah, you can't do that in the 1600s. So he was in prison two separate times and started writing Pilgrim's Progress while he was in prison the second time, I think. So I'm like, oh, that's interesting to reflect on some of the things, which we'll talk about some of the events and things that Christian has to go through. But in thinking about, oh yeah, the author was in prison while writing The Slough of Despond and The Castle of Despair, like all of these places. I'm like, oh, he's probably feeling all of these things. But I thought the contrast between those two is kind of cool. The Christian's walk and then Christiana's walk. journey?
Yeah, all of your extracurricular activities were very smart. Watching an adaptation, reading a biography, like you came prepared for this live stream.
Listen, because all I did was listen to the book. I'm like, I can't remember anything. I have to like refresh my mind. So I watched the adaptation yesterday, and then today looked up a couple articles. So I had to come. I'm like, I'm gonna be talking with Christy, who's so smart. I gotta be ready. I don't have tabs or line, so I had to be ready on some level. I love it.
I love it. Did you watch the? Oh, hang on. Let me say hello. Hi, Carmen. Oh, yes. We need to talk about the characters in just a second.
Yeah, well,
I think that's our next
I think
question.
that's our first one, right?
Yeah. I just wanted to ask, did your family watch the movie with you since you're with
No.
your family? No, okay, just you. Okay.
Yeah, we were all kind of doing our own thing, and I just found one on YouTube. So and I could speed it up, so I sped it up because I wasn't like really interested in like, let me watch this great movie. It was more like, let me refresh my mind of what I need to remember. So I was kind of like, yeah, watching, and then I'd skip ahead, excuse me, a little bit, and then I put the speed up a little bit so I didn't have to watch it at one speed.
Yes. Okay. So we'll talk about the characters now, Carmen. So
good transition, Carmen. Thanks.
Yes, that was a perfect transition. So this was actually, I think Krista came up with this question. So thank you, Krista. Christian runs into a lot of people on the road, as does Christiana. I think actually the question I emailed was slightly differently because it included Christiana. But which of the characters that they run into really stands out, and why? Do you have any thoughts, Krista?
Well, first, Carmen, who stood out to you? Because you said you could see yourself in them. So which ones?
Yes.
Tell us. And the rest of you, 6 of you are in the comments. 6 of you are watching.
Yes.
Well, maybe 5 because I'm here. I did like Christian's growth through his section, because I feel like he gained confidence as he went along, and I liked seeing that, because at the beginning, I don't know how to describe it, but I liked his journey, because I didn't love the whole picture of him leaving his family behind, but like, if you don't think of it as an actual leaving, but like a faith journey, it is kind of what happens, right? If one person in a family comes to faith, in a way, it does separate them from the rest of the family, and hopefully, like in this book, it will all end up okay. But the picture of him like leaving and her calling out, Christian, where are you going? And he's like, life, eternal life. And he like plugs his ears and runs away from them. I'm like, picture. I don't love that. But, and just his hesitancy and everything at the beginning, but then by the end, he does have a lot more confidence in just conversations and encouraging faithful to talk to talkative, and like, here's what you need to say to talkative. Like, he just has learned so much along the way. So I did like that. Although he's not my favorite character. I don't know who my favorite one is. I don't know. Who are some of your favorite? I'll have more answers, but
that was great. You are doing great. Hello. Welcome. So I think it was interesting when I was looking up discussion questions. A lot of them had to do with like specific characters on the road, and was it ignorance? It was somebody or worldly wise man, and it was talking about how I guess it was asking, is this kind of like a straw man argument, or is this like a really in-depth portrayal of worldly thought that, somebody actually thinks in the world, like realistically? And I was like, boy, I did not think about it that hard. So maybe on reread, I will do that. But I kind of was with Carmen in the sense that a lot of them stood out to me and made me feel like, oh yeah, I feel that kind of, yeah. I'm there too sometimes, like
Mhm.
pliable. I was like, I can definitely be too like go with the flow when it comes to worldly
Mhm.
things. So there was a lot of times like that when I felt kind of convicted when I was reading this. So on a very basic level, yes, I was kind of that those are some of the characters that stood out to me. Ignorance, who doesn't know the answers to any questions that
Yeah.
they're asking him, basically. Stuff like that.
Yeah. I think talkative stands out to me too, because I think number one, that scene was kind of funny, but also like it's easy to because I have been a Christian basically my whole life since I was very young. My dad was a pastor. Like I know the answers and I know how to talk, even if that's not reflecting where my heart is at the moment. So I think
Mhm.
that kind of made me pause because I can be that person who just I can talk a good talk, even if that's not exactly where I'm at at
Yeah,
the moment.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
that's
one
so true. Because if you grow up in the church, you just kind of, it's like you breathe it. You just
Yes,
know.
it's yeah. Well, and it's then convicting because I'll get like compliments about saying stuff sometimes, and I'm like, oh shoot, like okay, God, like sorry about that one, because I know because you know, right? Like I know what's inside, and I know what I'm really dealing with, but I can still say the right things, and
Mhm.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
that is relatable.
Speaking Christianese is easy. And cigarettes and chocolate. Yeah, when you grow
Mhm.
up, in church. Yep, it is.
Mhm.
Which is not great. It's not great.
Yes. You want it
But I
to be
thought
deeper than that.
yeah, sure. But I did think that scene was just funny because they, like, kinda
Yeah.
trapped him in his talk. I'm like, "Well, sometimes that's what you need to get
Yes.
called out on stuff and, like, yeah, show someone to show you that what you're saying is not actually, like, where your heart is and what your actions are, where your actions are." Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I with Faithful and Christian at different times, they had, like, really good sense in dealing with people on the road. It was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, that was smart."
Yeah.
Holy Spirit. Oh,
Yeah.
Kevin just came in. My mom and Kevin were working on the lavender in our
Oh,
yard, and
nice.
are they already done? They've only been out there, like, an hour. Anyways, sorry, distracted.
Oh, and
Alright.
then Carmen, like, yeah, Mercy and
Yeah.
then her daughter felt so unworthy and afraid. Mhm.
Yes. I really loved when Mercy was knocking at the gate, very earnestly knock like
Yeah.
it was a like an illustration of prayer. I just felt that oh, that's so powerful and good. Like that is when we're really desperate and we're praying, that's such a good illustration of that.
Mhm. I think that's another difference between the 2 sections as well, because Christian's section was really focused on his journey. I mean, yes, Faithful was with him for quite a while, and then Hopeful was with him for quite a while. But, like, Christiana's journey, right from the beginning, had other people with her. I mean, she had her 4
Yeah.
kids, and she had Great Heart and Mercy was with her a lot of the time, like, and then all these other people, and it was kind of like a group journey, which I thought was really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, it was like cozier with companions. When
Yeah.
Christian was all alone at the beginning, it was like,
Mhm.
boy, this is grim. But then Faithful gets, executed, so that was pretty grim too. But
Yeah, that was pretty dark.
yeah. I was
Well, and
reading
this
that like right
whole
before bed, like, ah.
I mean, this kinda gets into the next question of, like, different scenes, but, like, when they
Mm,
were in the castle, Despair the Giant's castle, and he was
yes.
trying to get them to kill themselves, and they came very close a couple different times. And that once I learned that John Bunyan wrote this in prison, I'm like, oh, this makes a lot of sense. Kind of feeling trapped and hopeless. And then of course, like, oh wait, I have a key. I'm like, duh, Christian.
Yeah.
But don't we do that? Like, we know and the key was called promise. Like, we know the promises of God, and yet still we find ourselves trapped in those despairing times. Like, it felt very real. Like, maybe not to the point of actually thinking of suicide, but like that feeling of despair and just feeling overwhelmed by our situation. But forget it. We have the promises of God. Like, we have his promise that can help us maybe not escape physically from the situation, but to escape that despair and have that hope again, which, yeah. So that was a scene that stands out to me.
Yeah. You're so right about it being very like emotionally resonant. Like you can, it feels different when somebody is writing from their pain, like while they're in pain. There's a book, I think it's called Rose from the Briar it was a Christian missionary, like a really famous one. I can't remember who it was at the moment, but it's like writing to the chronically ill when she is in bed with a broken leg that's just taking way too long to heal. And like, it's like, it's very poignant when you're writing from your pain and encouraging people from your pain. And I feel like that's what certain sections of this book really, I felt that very strongly in it without even knowing his biography.
Right.
Yes, Amy Carmichael. That was the one. Thank you. Amazing book. So let us know in the comments, guys, what locations or challenges along the pilgrimage did you find yourself thinking a lot about? Yes, Christian's journey and prayer for his family paved the way for his family. Yes, like Representative. Yeah. Okay, I didn't even think about this until Krista mentioned it, but Christian's whole faith journey begins and ends while his children are still super young.
Yeah.
So it was very fast. Like you said, it seemed longer to me when I was reading it than Christiana's did, but it was obviously way shorter.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as far as text, there's a lot more in the first part. The second part is shorter, but the length of time that's covered is much longer in the second part. Because they all are married by the end. All four boys. But like at the beginning of Christiana's part, there was one person that they meet who catechizes. Like she asks boys questions, and like the youngest one gets a very simple, and like each one gets a little more complex. But like they're still very young at that point. But then a couple chapters later, Mercy is getting married to the oldest son. I'm like, wait a minute, what? I thought he was 12. Like,
Yeah. That is so interesting. I didn't honestly not even think about that till you said it. Wow. Okay.
I also loved just the whole picture of the burden of Christian carrying his burden.
Yes.
And how it grew with different, like when the legalistic town, whatever that he saw right at the beginning, his burden gets bigger because he can't possibly live up to all of these laws that you see are maybe good, but we just can't live up to all of them. We can't fulfill them on our own. And then it grows, just all the different things that make his burden get bigger. And then finally, when there's that hill and the cross is at the top and the grave is at the bottom and his burden, like when he finally comes face to face with the cross and the burden comes off and the rolls to be seen no more. I'm like, it's just such a beautiful picture of
that was like, a great moment.
Jesus like removing our burden of sin from us ultimately. Yeah. Not that the rest of the way is going to be easy, because that's like the start of like not the very beginning, but like it's the start of the real journey, and there's a lot of still hard stuff coming down the road, but just that initial removal of the burden, I thought that was a good scene. I liked it.
Yes, and it was even hard to get there for him. There's hard things that came even before that.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, and I liked that too. That's one of the things I read in an article this morning. Like, it's not hard. Like, I don't know. It can be hard, but like the act of salvation is not difficult. But the act of like from the point of realizing that we're sinners to the point of receiving Christ's forgiveness, sometimes that takes a while. It's not always like, oh, I'm a sinner. Oh, I need Jesus. Like there's sometimes a lot that has to happen. And I love that there was like the Slough of Despond, right? Was one of the first things as soon as he left his city. Because he realizes what a mess he is, like, and how the burden is heavy and all that. And then the next thing, worldly wise, is the first like character he comes in contact with that tries to get him off the path. And he goes to that legalistic city. Like there's all these things, but if you think about a person who is on their way to encountering Jesus, like there are all these things, like churches who focus a lot on rules and legalism, and then worldly wise, like culture, and what does cultural Christianity tell you? It's not necessarily what Jesus tells us. So like there's all these things that actually are hindrances or try to hinder us
Yeah.
from encountering Jesus and having that forgiveness, which that act is easy, like because it's freely given to us. So, but there's a lot along that path that isn't easy for some people. Like, and everyone's story is going to be a little different there, but yeah.
That's so true. I think there's a lot of people that I think they're just not convinced yet that this is the right path, even if they are
Right.
later, which we always
Right.
pray that they will be.
Mhm.
It takes a while for them to even decide to go there. Yeah. I think about that a lot. People's journeys to faith are just, they're really fascinating. I just started, one of my friends here on BookTube just started a channel called Catholic Wisdom, and he's interviewing people about their faith journeys, how they came to faith. And he's
Cool.
Catholic, but he interviewed me on there, and he interviewed some other friends from BookTube on there, and it's like, this is fascinating hearing how people came to know
That's cool.
Christ.
Yeah. That's very cool. Yeah. Cause
Isn't that
it's so
cool?
unique. Like we've
Yeah.
all been created so uniquely and have unique
Mhm.
experiences that we're even bringing to the table in the first place, that God meets us where we are. And I love like all along in this book, like Evangelist was right in his city or right outside of his city. Like one of the help helped him get out of the Slough of Despond. So like there were people along the way that was kind of cool because I think in the second part, Christiana's family, her sons stayed to help other people. Like they didn't cross into the celestial city; they stayed to help others. Good, great heart. Like all of these people were along the way to be helpers along the path, which I think is so cool. God doesn't leave us on our own, and that's our job now until we get to the celestial city, right? Like our job is to help others in their
Mhm.
journey.
Mhm.
Yeah. I don't know.
I feel like the river was the most poignant moments for me in both stories. Crossing
Mm.
the river was just death, you know? It was
Mhm.
like, "Oh, this is intense." I
Yeah, it
feel like,
wasn't.
yeah, that felt like the most vital to me, and, like, I had no problem paying attention at those points.
Yeah.
It just I just feel like John Bunyan lived in a time where death was confronting people all the time. I guess I just feel like in our modern life, of course death happens because everybody dies, but I just feel like in earlier time periods, people would die like frequently, younger, of things
Yeah.
that are curable today, of accidents because there was no like workers' unions and stuff. Like death was something that just faced them a lot. And I remember there's somewhere C.S. Lewis talks about when he was an atheist, and one of his friends was dying, and he had all of these like spiritual mental agonies about dying and like fearing hell, but he never had that belief during his life. But as he was dying, he was terrified of like going to hell and stuff. And that for C.S. Lewis was really impactful.
Yeah.
Going through that process of helping somebody to die. Yeah, that just really stood out to me in this book as well. It's not something that it's like I never think about death, but I kind of try not to because it's just scary, but sometimes you're just faced with it, and that's how life is. I feel like this book really brought that home. Think about this. You need to think about this now, Yes. Yeah, every journey was different when they were crossing the river. Like Christian's was really terrifying. I think Christian's really stood out to me because he really struggled, and I actually saved a quote from that. The sorrows of death have encompassed me about. I shall not see the land that flows with milk and honey. And that's a great darkness. And a great darkness and horror fell upon Christian so that he could not see before him. But, his friend was still encouraging him, and he got through it. And when he got to the other side, that news kind of made it all around and influenced his family and influenced a lot of people. So, yeah.
Yeah.
It was impactful for everybody. I don't know why, but I tend to dwell on death a lot in books. So when Faithful was martyred too, that was the other thing that I marked it down. So
I love it.
Yes.
Read the book, Cigarettes and Chocolate Milk. Maybe watch an adaptation first, so you're ready.
Which is this one?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. That's exciting.
I'm glad we're inspiring you to read it.
We said this in the beginning, but it's kind of like 4-star material and 3-star reading experience. But that might change the more times you read it. The reading experience might become easier and more enjoyable the more times you read it.
Yeah.
So let's talk about. We did already kind of talk about the style, so I guess we don't need to talk about that anymore. But if you guys in the comments have anything you want to say about the style, please do. Our mutual friend Tiffany actually talked about how she told me that she really loved this book, and her daughter has read multiple children's versions of this book and loved those. Yeah. But when they tried to read Pilgrim's Progress together, the daughter, Claire, she was like totally lost, didn't understand or remember anything, couldn't follow it. Like, so the style is difficult.
It is difficult. I think Tiffany reads a ton of classics.
Yeah.
And so her brain is adjusted to an older style of writing. Mm-hmm. Whereas for somebody who doesn't read a lot of classics, it helped to listen to it on audio because tone of voice and different like different voices for different characters to a degree, like that kind of helps flesh it out a little bit. Whereas if I was just reading it, I'd be like, what on earth? And yet I was looking up quotes because I didn't mark any. And I'm like, oh, that's such a good line. Oh, that's such a good line. What a good quote.
Yes.
There's a lot of really good quotes that you kind of miss by listening to it on audio. So you got to kind of pick your poison. There's no like fantastic, maybe like reading while listening. Maybe that's the best way to consume this one.
I did that most of the time when I was reading. I was listening along with it, but I had to keep retracing my steps and reading. So yeah, I don't think that really worked that well for me, but at the same time, I was able to finish it this time. So maybe it did help. I was kind of trying to balance picking up all the gems that are along the way with actually finishing it in a reasonable amount of time, because if I gave it all of the time that it requires, it would be several months that I would be trying to read this, and like probably only this, you know.
Yeah. And I guess I wish my audio version this is about style. So like my audio version separated it into first stage, second stage, third stage, which is kind of like chapters. This has none of that. Like there's no differentiation other than first part Christian story, second part Christiana. So there's a very clear, this is now part 2, but there's no, which I think is a hindrance for me anyway. Like I am a fan of a chapter.
Yeah, same.
Point, because then I feel like if I needed to go back, like I don't know, I like a good chapter separated into chapters.
It helps you kind of remember and visualize each step. Yeah, I agree.
And very easy. I mean, you could easily, and I like calling them stages. I'm fine if you want to call it a stage. That's what the audiobook did that I listened to. But yeah, this was not.
Yeah, it was tough. It was tough.
Yeah.
Thank you for everybody who hung in there. Welcome.
Hello.
Share your thoughts with us. Welcome back. Welcome home. We'd love to hear general thoughts on characters, locations, things that stood out to you. Yeah.
Oh man, we didn't even talk about Vanity Fair. Vanity Fair. Like the more I think about that, so brilliant. Like it's built right on the way, like right on the path was built this fair by Apollyon and Beelzebub. Like they created this distracting fair where you can purchase anything that you want that isn't part of your journey, right? And how realistic that is, that we are so easily distracted even when we're on the path to following God. Things come up that immediately will distract us or pause us in that journey. I'm like, oh my word, such a good thing. And I love that Christian and Faithful were like, yeah, we don't want anything that you've got for us. And then they were like, well, we're putting you in jail then. And then ultimately, that's where Faithful is martyred. But how true that is, though, that Satan puts things directly right in our path when we think we're doing good. We're like staying on the straight and narrow. We're doing our thing. And Satan's like, hey, what about this? Don't you want a bigger house? Don't you want a better job? Like just all kinds of things that can distract us from the path that God has put us on. Yeah.
So true. So true. It is easy to get distracted.
Because I think everything else, for the most part, I believe Christian was called or brought off of the path. So like the Castle of Despair, the Slough of Despond, I think was right on the path or right next to the path, but the legalistic filled town or whatever that Worldly Wise pointed him to, like all these other things, the meadow that he saw near the end that he went off on, the arbor, like these things were all off the path. But Vanity Fair was like right on
it. Yeah. Oh, that's so true. Okay. We have lots of comments. You guys,
I love it. I'm glad you guys are getting chatty. Please do.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are like easy reader versions of it that you don't have to read or modern, I should say. There's like modern version or whatever. And children's version too.
Yeah, it seems like they get the point across, but it's not as difficult.
Won't be as difficult. Yeah, I agree.
Yes. Nice. Okay. Yes, we have another immersion reader in the house.
Love it.
Yeah. Understandable. I know. I mean, it's pretty big. Like, but you can, if we can make it, you can make it.
Right. You can do it.
Yes. And even if that time is not now, in the future, you can do it. If you set aside a month or a month and a half, you can get through it. Hello, Borbidol. Please, actress. Really?
That's cool.
That is cool. I don't know if I've ever heard anybody say that it was their favorite book before.
It's not mine.
Yes. This I do remember.
Definitely. I didn't remember that, but it makes sense. Sweet Beth.
That was one reason why I was like, okay, I need to try it again. These 4 little girls can read it. I can do it too. I'm an adult.
And you've done it. Yay.
Yes, we did it. Yes. Yes, it's like prison fiction and memoirs. Yeah, Dostoevsky too. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of things that
Paul's letters. Yes. Paul's letters were mostly written in prison, right? Those are some good ones. Not fiction, but still.
Yes. Oh, that's true too.
It gives you like focused time. When you're in prison, right? You have focused time.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
To think and process. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, and Letter from Birmingham Jail. That was the other thing I was thinking of. That's an amazing letter. But that's Martin Luther King Jr. Yes. Oh, interesting. Oh, yeah. That's right. Was it Feeble-Minded? No, what was his name? The one who ended up crossing the river and leaving his feeble mind behind. Oh man. Yeah, I loved that he was saved from the giant and he was like all along the way like very halting, and it was kind of a chore dragging him along, and but he made it to the end with the help of his friends and his faith. I loved that. I wish I could remember what his name was.
I thought a lot of that second part was focused on Greatheart and not just on Christiana and the boy. Like a lot was about him and what he did.
Yes, it was. I'm like, I want to look it up now, but I'll have to look at it later. All right. Listen to a podcast, and they were talking about how Pilgrim's Progress and C.S. Lewis's The Great Divorce were all takes on Dante's Divine Comedy. Ooh, that is fascinating. I did get Divine Comedy vibes from this at times.
Yeah.
That is
Feeble Mind. It was Feeble Mind. Is that what you were saying? Mr. Feeble Mind.
Yeah, Mr. Feeble Mind, yeah. I loved that that was thrown in there because I was like, okay, good. So some of us are represented by this Mr. Feeble Mind person. Yes. Okay, and I meant to pick up The Pilgrim's Regress, but I just didn't end up having time. By C.S. Lewis, because that was his. It's like I think about his journey to faith, but it's related to Pilgrim's Progress.
Okay.
So do you guys have any favorite quotes that you want to share? How about you, Krista?
You know what? I was trying to find one because I remember when I was reading, and I don't even remember where it is in here, but I was listening, and it was when Shame was talking to Christian. Yeah. And one of the characters said something like, I couldn't find it after. I can't even remember where it was because it was while I was driving. I'm like, I don't know where on earth it was. And I don't actually have the quote. So this is a big, like, lead up to no quote. But I remember like pausing the audiobook and just being like, whoa, that was good.
Yes.
I was so bummed because I was trying to find it today. I'm like, I don't even know where shame shows up. I can't even remember what part of the journey we were on.
Yeah, I marked that too because it was so good. It was like, oh, that is exactly what shame feels like.
Yeah, there was something that it just made me pause. But I don't remember where. Like, was it before Vanity Fair that Shame was there or after? Like, I don't even remember when Shame showed up because it was a quick. I mean, Shame wasn't there for very long. He wasn't a big. I don't know.
Let me see if I can find it. I just found the part where Moses, he runs out and whacks them, with the law. That part just cracked me up. It's like, that is a great illustration right there. Yeah,
I don't remember.
I don't find it either. But yeah, the part about shame was very also emotionally resonant. Yeah. All right.
What were some of your quotes? Because I know you have some.
Yeah, I mean, that part where Mercy is knocking was one of my favorite things that really stood out to me. Let me see if I can grab it. And then another one that I just shared online. I just shared it on Instagram this morning. Let me grab that one. And you guys in the comments can feel free to share if you have any. The way to heaven is as up a ladder, and the way to hell is as down a hill. So true. Okay. So Christiana tells Mercy, "Can you not tell how you knocked? I'm sure your knocks were so earnest that the very sound of them made me start. I thought I had never heard such knocking in all my life. I thought you would come in by violent hands or take the kingdom by storm." I just look, that is, when you listen to like a prayer warrior pray, that is what it's like. It is like almost a violent experience. And when Christian was crossing the river and having difficulty with death, and the scriptures that Hopeful was quoting to him were just like, oh. So he said, "When thou passest through the waters, I will be with thee, and through the rivers, they shall not overflow thee." Mm-hmm. Yeah, so good. Christian therefore presently found ground to stand on, and so it was followed that the rest of the river was but shallow.
I love it.
Yes, I love that.
I wish these had because I'm looking at quotes from Pilgrim's Progress, but they're not like page numbers or even tell what part it's at.
Share ones that you like though.
I will. I'm. There was a couple that I had found earlier, and I'm on I think a different site now.
Mm-hmm.
You've
got plenty of time to buy it.
There was just a quick one. Where did it go? Something about, here it is. Dark clouds bring waters when the bright bring none.
Oh.
I'm like, that's just a little thing, but that kind of makes you think, right?
Yes.
We need the water and we need the rain, but often that comes from the dark clouds, not from a bright sunny day.
Yes.
Oh, I love that. I don't know where that is. These are not marked as far as where they are in the book, so I don't know. But
I don't remember that at all, but that's so good. I feel like there was so many moments like that when one of them would be discouraged or confused, and Faithful or Hopeful or Christian would encourage the other one with something that's directly out of scripture, but in that context it felt fresh, It's like, oh, so good.
He that is down needs fear no fall.
Oh, yes. We have one from Carmen.
Oh, yeah.
It is not always necessary to grant things not asked for by doing so, such things are often viewed as of little value or are taken for granted, and it is a poor thing that is not worth asking for. Yes. It's hard to see the purpose in wilderness wanderings until after they are over. That is so true
as well.
That's how we feel a lot with, like, my health stuff, because we're always looking for answers for my health stuff, and it feels like, man, it's been 3 years and we've had no breakthroughs. That's really that's a tough feeling, but then on the other side, when we find an answer, which has happened multiple times for us, because I have a lot of health problems, we'll suddenly find a solution and it's like, whoa, it actually happened. And so looking back on that, it's like, that really gives you courage to keep going in the future. For us, that's how we found. That's not spiritual at all, but that's just life.
It relates though, right? Like, we don't always get the answers we want when we want them. Like, but when we do occasionally, it's helpful and motivating, and
yes, and it does really give you courage for the next time something pops up, even though you're like, oh, is this going to take another 3 years? You're like, but we found an answer. Like, God got us through it, and now we're through it, so it can happen again.
Oh, I like this. I think it's this Faithful. It says Faithful. So maybe Faithful's talking. A man may have knowledge like an angel and yet not be Christian. So your sign of knowledge as evidence is not valid. Indeed, to know is a thing that pleases talkers and boasters, but to do is what pleases God.
Ooh, that's good. Excellent. It's so quotable.
Yeah, there's a lot. Like, there's so many. Like, I just Googled like Pilgrim's Progress quotes, and there's so many pages that have. I mean, Goodreads I think has 4 pages of quotes just on Goodreads. I'm not on Goodreads right now, those ones, because those are easy to find. But yeah.
Well, I'm really glad that we read this and that we managed to finish it. I don't know if I would have finished it without doing this specifically as a reward.
Yeah.
So thank you for reading it with us.
I feel like summer may not have been my choice time. Like, I feel like this is a winter fall read when you want to just dig in and hunker in a little bit with it. Summer, I prefer a little bit more light and fluffy in general that I read, but like something that's a page turner, that's a quicker read. This one, I feel like you need to kind of hunker down with it a little bit to fully get out of it what you can. But I think it is one that you could reread and get different things at different times, depending on what you're going through. And so there is a lot there that's worth reading for sure. It was worth the read. Yeah, it was worth the read.
I agree. And you can think of it as kind of, I guess, preparing for a future read as well, where you're going to enjoy it more. Because we did our dues and finished it this time around.
Yeah.
Next time around, we'll be able to enjoy it more.
That's funny. And like, that's how I feel about just having finished Way of Kings. I'm like, I feel like I could read this again and get more out of it, because I just spent a lot of it confused. I still loved it, but a lot of it I just was like, what?
Yeah. I think that's a series that
feels important, but I don't know why.
He's really good about, yes, because he's an outliner, he builds things up in advance
Oh, yeah.
so much that when the climax happens, it's like, it feels like, how did I not realize this was coming? But you never
Yes.
do. You just never
Yes.
know that it's coming. It's amazing.
I love it. I love Anna Marie said
Yes.
she listened to the abridged version first, read the abridged version first, and then the original.
Oh,
Cool.
yes. Oh, that's an interesting way to go about it as well. Read the abridged version, then listen to the original. I like that. That's good. Oh, I'm so glad.
Yeah, I'm glad to
Yay.
come. Yay.
That's awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for coming and discussing with us. This definitely made it worthwhile, even more so, to actually be able to discuss it.
I love getting to chat books.
Yes. Thank you so much, Krista.
You're welcome. Thanks
Well,
for inviting me to join you. Yeah.
We have to do this again next year.
Let's do it. Not
All
Pilgrim.
right.
We'll do something different.
Yes, we'll do something different. It won't be the same book. All right, everybody. I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and we'll talk to you next time.
Bye.
Bye. Oops. I almost left the studio.